Hi everybody, I'm back again and I'm just once again testing more of the stream. I'm going to be doing this for the next little while until I get the hang of things. It's a little bit of a different setup than I had before, which is why I'm saying that, and also software has changed since the last time I used it. I also want to do some different things with a little bit of different kind of setup, wherein not for this one but for other future ones I'll be going over and editing and then kind of going over my edits right away, so I have that all in the front of my mind, because that was originally part of what it was for, what this was for, was so that I could read the story and then go over it, mark it up for editing, not this one but most of them, and then kind of figure out where I'm going to go from there. This one's a little bit different because it's just handwritten. So instead, after I'm done, I'm scanning in, and then it's going to go to OCR Town, yay, where I have to translate it into English, which is what I do with a lot of the ones that come to me like this. And this was one of the last pieces that was hand typed, like on a manual typewriter. Well, no, I think this one actually, because it's later on, he may have been actually working with an electric typewriter by this point. So, steps, bounds and steps ahead. But yeah, so I'm gonna read this out and then go from there. Alrighty. Because I'm gonna be reading it though, it means that I'm gonna have problems with chatting. So if I don't answer you right away, I'm really sorry. It's because I am bad at trying to text and read the story at the same time. I'll do what I can. We'll see how that goes. Alrighty, here goes. Chapter 2 of Guardian of the Sword. Oh yeah, and I guess I should also mention, Guardian of the Sword, this is an alternate version. This is the 1982 manuscript rather than the 1977 manuscript, so there are some obvious changes, just so you're aware. A little different. Okay, here goes. Chapter 2. The family of the Guardian had been content to guard the sword, keeping it for the one who had come to wield it. But the words of Arvindel's prophecy caused the Guardians to think of themselves as only caretakers, waiting for the coming of a foretold hero. Some have said that the ambiguity in the prophecy led to the fall of Aventir. The Book of the Sword by Karen Verandas. On waking, Rorik went to the entrance carefully and let in the light. Went to the entrance carefully and let in the light. There was no sign that the Hygerians were making any serious attempt to search for him. He was not surprised, knowing that the Hygerians were people of the plains with little love for woods or swamps. He surveyed the contents of the room and found that all the weapons and armor had been wrapped in an oiled cloth to protect them against rust. There appeared to be enough here to equip a small warband. The helmets bore the type of ornamentation which had been common in the days of Arvindel, though clearly some of the perishable items, such as clothing, were considerably newer. He took a bow and quiver of arrows, a sword, a shield, and a short spear, suitable for thrusting or throwing. He had found no food whatsoever, and would therefore have to hunt along the way, slowing his progress. Outside he found something unexpected. Underneath brush by the mound there was a small rowboat with oars in it. It was in quite good condition, though so dry he would clearly have to do a good deal of bailing until water swelled the planks again. Still, it would make circling around the Hygerian camp somewhat easier. He dragged it to the water's edge. He looked back to where the turrets of Aventir showed through the gnarled branches of a swamp tree. I go, father, not in the manner you supposed, but I go. Here, so near the mouth of the river, the current of Ilcanir was weak, and it was not difficult to row against it, towards the Icarian hills, hidden beyond the tangled maze of trees. He tried to keep to the main channel, somewhat away from the ancient willows and dark sycamores which shadowed the dark little streams in all directions. At the bottom of the boat lay his shield, bearing the device of Aventir, a leathered gloved fist holding the sword upraised. He realized now that he was homeless and without family, that barbarians sang and celebrated in the home of his ancestors. Anger came over him then, and he would have turned the small boat to go back, to leap ashore, and to go into the Hygerian camp, smiting until they brought him down at last. But before he could move to do this, he remembered his father's command. The sword must go to the prince in the hills. Fair towers of Aventir... let me try that again. Fair towers of Aventir, I go, I go. Fair towers of Aventir, I grieve. Home of my fathers is great as my sorrow. As bound by my duty I leave. Though the current was not strong, he did lose some time in bailing, for the boat leaked badly at first, and once even came near to sinking. As time went on, the planks swelled together again, and he was able to travel faster. Of the wild Durakos who'd inhabited the swamp, he saw no sign that he could call certain. Often he caught sight of their brief movements out of the corner of an eye, which might have been watchers. One night he was kept awake until dawn by an eerie chanting deep in the trees. Beyond that, there was nothing. In 2 days he was out of the swamp, though the area for 2 miles on each side of the main channel was marsh. While not so mysterious and haunting in appearance was the moss-hung trees of the swamp, it was tedious to pass through. Only occasionally there were more than a few yards of dry ground at a time, and rarely was there an elevation high enough to allow him to see over the expanse of tall marsh reeds. It was a lonely and comfortless place. There being little else to think of, Rourke turned his mind to the problem of how to fight the Hygerians. The greatest difficulty was that, being mostly horsemen, once they decided to fight, they could move so quickly that their army could be at the gates of the city before the people of that city were aware of the danger. The normal method of fighting them, if there had not been time to gather a large enough war host beforehand, had been to allow them to do as they wished in the countryside until boredom overcame their discipline, and they could be met and defeated in small bands. By the middle of the 4th day, his departure from Aventir, he was nearly in the hills, and the current was becoming too strong for him to row against. Abandoning the boat, he set out on foot. He had some information about Connell's whereabouts, but now that there were Icarians in service to the Hygerians, his knowledge might be somewhat out of date. He would have to make his way with caution into the hills. That night, just as he had finished making his fire, he was alerted by a movement in the shadows. His hand went to his sword, and he saw a troll step into the small, flickering circle of light. He'd seen its kind only twice, and then at great distance. But he recognized it. It stood half again the height of a man, with green, hairless skin, and muscular arms that swung near to the knees. The stench of it reached him, and even as he saw the snarl on the face and the light of madness flaring flaring in the eyes. A troll might be killed, but not without great difficulty. Any wound would heal instantly, save for one that pierced the heart. And not many could come to such close quarters with a troll and still survive. And for all its bulk, a troll could still outrun a man, so battle was the only. And so for all its bulk, a troll could still outrun a man, so battle was the only choice. Rorik took up his spear and threw it, deep into the troll's chest. The beast grinned, pulled it forth, and cast it aside. As the troll moved, Rorik stepped in and struck with his sword. The blade carved through the shoulder, deep into the chest, just as the other huge arm swung round to strike Rorik's shield, driving him back and down, his sword flying from his hand. He lay half-stunned for a moment, as the beast waited for the wound to finish healing. Then it rushed in with a cry that might have been one of triumph. Rorik rolled to his feet, his sword laid against a rock, the blade broken off some inches from the hilt. The sword lay in its scabbard by the fire. He leaped for it, and had a hand on it just as the troll came rushing up behind. With some vague thought of using the scabbarded sword as a club, he whirled and brought it up to a guard position. The sword glimmered free from its sheath, and he felt a slight tingling in his hand. He was motionless for an instant when the troll came leaping at him, arms spread wide. Years of battle and training for battle saved Rorik. He thrust with the sword and dodged aside as the great body crashed forward, almost trapping him. It seemed, as it died, that the troll's last cry was almost intelligible. He was not sure how long he stood there afterwards, staring at the blade which glowed gently with its own inner light. He wondered if the sword had simply saved him in this instance, or if he were indeed the one fated to draw the sword. Might he have saved Aventyr if he had known? Might he not have even saved the day at Dyrk's Field? Or had all this been planned by powers themselves? Be that as it may, he realized that having the sword out of its sheath would make the raising of a warband for the prince a good deal easier. He sought to remember the old stories about the sword and the powers reputed to it. All he could recall were a few verses of the exploits of Arvindal. Arvindal rode out armed for war, the bared blade raised up on his shield. The knave who stole his lady love was slain because he thought to yield. Then other foes fenced in the maid, and sterner hearts set bar and ward, but gleamed the blade and smote and flashed, the towers reeled before the sword. He shook his head. Rhymes and verses say nothing of what the sword does. Aventyr is lost, perhaps not forever. O barbarians that rejoice in the towers of my home, I do promise I shall return to you. Dun dun dun! And that's the end of that chapter. So, that has a little bit of a different feel than the other one, which is good. Well, in some ways it's kind of cool because it has like a little more of a, he's like, okay, how did this happen and why? And he is a little more introspective here, which is kind of nice. In some ways I kind of wouldn't mind putting that into the original manuscript, which, you know, that may be a thing I do at a later date. Right now I kind of just want to, I just want to scan this one in, and then we'll go from there and see how everything else goes. But thank you everybody for tuning in. I know it was really, really short tonight, but that was just because it was a short chapter. It's 6 pages. Normally they're like longer, a little bit longer. So yeah, I will talk to everybody again. I'll talk to everybody again tomorrow. It's gonna be later. Pardon me. It's gonna be a later night because it's Friday, and I'm not really sure how this new schedule is gonna look. Right now I have some commitments, so it might be a very late night tomorrow night, but I want to try and just make sure I'm doing it every day as a way of trying to build up the practice. Just so you're aware, so I won't be doing this on weekends. It's only going to be like a Monday to Friday sort of situation. I may not be doing it on Monday or the Friday of a long weekend, depending on when that falls. And this month I'll be traveling to a convention, so I'll be away from Thursday the 21st, which means the schedule will be a little bit weird for that week, which is the week of the 17th, because I may be getting ready on the 20th. We'll see how that all pans out. And I'll be back on the 25th, but I'm not going to be doing any broadcasting then. I'll be broadcasting on the 26th maybe. And so, yeah. That's my rough schedule. I'll post something once I know better about it. I don't know if I'm going to be doing any schedule posting this month at all, because really this is me just trying to get back into the swing of doing regular streaming and practicing, and yeah, mostly is so that I can, to do two things. So I can practice reading to people and making sure that I'm like, up and reading and being more lively than simply, and then he did this, and then he did that, because that's no fun for anybody. And then also just so people can hear my dad's stories, and also so that I can do editing, because one of the parts of editing is hearing it. So yeah, until next time, I will talk to you all again really soon. Have a good night.